ekam aksharam hridiram vasate swayam likhyate hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam matram Atmarupe Hridi Vishamanasa Chindata Jata Charanero Atmanishto Deham Brahmaya Jadatmakam Aham Buddhalatasyastitu Aham Tattva Samaye Siddhatma Saddha Soham Spurtikaya Arunachala Shiva Guru Vibharu Soham Spurtikaya Arunachala Shiva Guru Vibharu Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we have come to the summing up part of these discussions on Atma bodham. The work is Atma bodham by Adi Shankar, and we have been taking up the Tamil translation by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. This whole work can be summarized in two ways. One, a very simple way. What do we take from this? The title itself saying that it is Atma and Bodham. Atma bodham, Anma bodham, the knowledge of the self or self-knowledge. Whichever way we look at it, the direct way to summarize the whole teaching is to go to Bhagavan's self-enquiry. That all the anatma arises only after the rise of the other thoughts in the mind, which follow the I thought. The I thought arising, all other thoughts arise. Taking the I thought to the source or seeking the truth of the I thought is itself is Atma bodham. That means the very practice we have been taking up all these years. The practice of self-enquiry itself is a summary of how to have self-knowledge, is summary of Atma bodham. When the other thoughts arise, one is not to pursue them or try to complete them or try to keep them as a means and achieve some other ends, but should diligently seek the source of the I thought. The fact being that behind every thought, there is hidden this first person. The first person is hidden. Whatever the other thought may be, it is always for a first person. So seek the truth of the first person or seek the source from where the first person arises. And that is the direct path to Atma bodha, or that is the teaching summarized directly for us by Bhagavan. That when something other than the I is seen, either through the senses or through the mental faculty, we know that the mental faculty is required for the senses to operate also. That's why Bhagavan says the mind is the adhara for the waking and dream, and that mind itself vanishes in deep sleep. And the Atma alone being the one constant presence through all the three states of waking, dream, and deep sleep. And to find out the truth of that I, letting go of the other thought that arises is itself one clear summary. When we practice that, we are practicing the teachings of Atma bodha, which we will see sometime in the other summary, where we go through verses 31 to 40. We will see how the nididhyasana part of Atma bodha comes near to the practice of self-enquiry that we have taken up. So self-enquiry itself is a summary of this whole work, these 68 verses of Atma bodha. Now, coming to the work itself, we find that the work is for our convenience. We can look at it as divided into 8 parts. The first part being the introduction. See them. We will briefly look at the flow of the work and then go into each of those verses as to what they directly point to, not into the detailed meaning, but that will be a summary which we can have as a support for Atma Vichara. Just as Ulladu Narpadu, Anubandham. These two works we have discussed as close supports for practice of self-enquiry. We are given, some of us are inclined towards Adi Shankara's teachings or towards Vedanta or towards Sanskrit. For those of us who are interested in or have an inclination, a suvasana towards the traditional teachings, this work, the Atma bodha and its contents, can act as a reminder, because those suvasanas, what they do, they remind us of self-enquiry. They are jumping boards from where we can take the leap towards Atma Vichara. So in that sense, let us see the 8 parts overall. First, the first part is the introduction, which we can generally remember as the qualities of the Sishya, and as to how the jnana is the direct path and how karma avirodhitaya ajnana. It is not a virodhi of ajnana, therefore it cannot demolish it. And what are the two ways in which jnana comes? That forms the introduction. I won't be going into the other parts as much as this. We will go into it later. The second part is okay, in the fourth and fifth verses, the Adi Guru, Adi Shankara has said that the jnana can come in a flash, like Meghapaye Amushavaniva. Like when the cloud cover is removed. Now that rains have come to Bangalore, we can see this. That when the cloud cover moves, we can see the Amshavan, the Surya shining through. Like that, the jnana can happen. However, if Jiva Bhava is strong in the fifth verse, the Jiva can be taking up the jnana sadhanas. And the jnana sadhanas may appear like karma-like thing. What about that? What about those doings? They will also vanish along with the ajnana. Those sadhanas also will vanish into the jnana. Like that, he would have finished the first segment of introduction. But then our experience doesn't seem to tally with that. There is a lot of difference between, there is neither feeling of that all are merged in the jnana in a flash, or that even that if we take up some sadhana, this solid world is going to go away. We seem to be entrapped in an experience of we are such a small being trapped in the happenings of trillions of beings having all their work put together, and the whole effect on the individual being oppressive, and we seem to be trapped in this. That is our experience, and Guru is saying that the jnana will come in a flash or will come with a little sadhana. So the Guru goes into explaining what is this world experience that all of us find out. Even there you can see a flow, which we will see what it is, that how this world appearance comes about. Very nicely he begins with the dream experience. Like you can treat it like a dream, or with greater understanding from the sadhaka. The earlier verses of this segment will explain the world in an easy way. With the jiva bhava being strong, like in the between the fourth and the fifth verse, how the superior sadhaka, or as Bhagavan would say, Chadwick would ask him as to why is it that after so many years also I am not getting the samadhi experience, while this small girl of 11 years sitting in front of you is getting samadhi experience. Bhagavan would say that what to do. Some sadhakas are like wood, some sadhakas are like coal, and some sadhakas are like something else which is immediately incendiary, which immediately catches fire. So, Karpura, you can say that the sadhakas are like that, and the Jnana Guru gives the Upadesha or the Mauna equally to all, and it is received by different sadhakas in different ways. In traditional European culture, they will say that if you keep in the oven bread, the loaves, that is the dough, made of different types of grains, some of ragi, some of millets, and some of whole wheat, some of just maida, then the way in which they will get cooked or baked will be different. If you keep the same time, then the way in which they are baked will be different. And that is how the difference in sadhakas is there, and that is how they receive the Upadesha or the blessing. So similarly, we will find that the instructions as to the world also, Guru will bring us to, if the Jiva Bhava is very strong, then you can say that the Upadis, the Panchakoshas are the main reason why the consciousness seems to be trapped. So, the next segment, that will be 6 to 15, the verses will be, why is it that we immediately don't get the jnana which the Guru is assuring, and why we seem to be trapped in this world? We will go into that verse by verse a little bit. The third segment is the discrimination between the upadhis and atma. The viveka is given to us. The discrimination between what is atma and what is the upadhi, because the main sadhana is going to be upadhikshaya, or the detaching oneself from the upadhis, because from here on the Guru is going to assume that our jiva bhava is very strong, and since the jiva bhava is very strong, he will not be using some of the explanations for the world which he had used earlier. He will be taking that we are upadhi bound, and he will begin this segment 16 to 29. The verses will be how the koshas, they cover the atma and how they make the world appear to be very real, and what is the nature of the atma and how it is covered up. The jnana, the viveka is given there. This is to be read and assimilated, so that the next segment, the 16 to 29, 1 to 5 is introduction, 6 to 14, the verses are on what is this world appearance in which we seem to be trapped. Then 15 to 29, the verses are on the discrimination. You would have ended the previous segment of world with the upadhis, or the koshas, are those which make the world appearance so real. So what is the discrimination between upadhi and atma? That will be there between 16 to 29 verses. Then 30 to 40 will be our practiced verses. That is how to discard or disassociate by the practice of neti neti from the upadhis, and how to associate or have iti iti with the atma swarupa. That will be verses 30 to 40. So the four segments so far. One is introduction, second is the oppressive world appearance due to the upadhis. The third is the viveka between what is the upadhis, what are the upadhis, and how they cover up the atma swarupa. And the fourth segment is the practice of the detachment from upadhis and the identification or the holding of the atma swarupa. Here, for our understanding, even the thought of the atma is held objectively, not as subjectively in self-enquiry. So 30 to 40 verses is the practice of neti neti and iti iti. From 41 to 46, what happens is that how this practice, the earlier practice, the practice of nididhyasana, and towards the end of the segment we'll be asked to go to a solitary place, sit, free ourselves from the senses, and put attention by doing neti neti of the upadhis. What this sadhana will do is this sparks the jnana. this rubbing of one wood on the other, one sadhana on the atma swarupa, the atma swarupa being the adhara on which the sadhana is being rubbed. The spark of jnana agni comes, and what it does, all the havis, all the ignorance fragments are burnt up. So between verses 41 to 46, how the ignorance stands vanquished, and when ignorance stands vanquished, the atma swarupa rises and shines, self-knowledge rises and shines by itself. So it is not that the self-knowledge is attained by sadhana. So between 41 and 46, we'll be seeing how the ignorance, so the sadhana is not for gaining the atma swarupa, it is for getting rid of ajnana. Ignorance vanquished, self-knowledge shines by itself. That is the fifth segment. The sixth segment is the jnani. Then the jnani, so far we may still be thinking of him as an individual who has come up to this point where the ajnana is gone. how he merges in the Brahman. How the Jnani merges in the Brahman, 47 to 53. Verses 47 to 53, how the individuality of the Jnani merges in the Brahman. 54 to 64 is the segment on the nature of the Brahman, verses glorifying and pointing us to the nature of the Brahman. Many of the commentators will pass through this very fast, this segment. More or less, many of the qualities of the Brahman will find repetition here, but then that is reinforcement required and will help you to abide as the Brahman. To lose the individuality in the Brahman, these qualities indicated by the sage between the verses 54 to 64, they help us in abiding in the Brahman. 65, 66, 67, 68, the four verses are about self-knowledge being the same as Brahman. How the self-knowledge, because that is what is the practice given here. So from defining the nature of Brahman, the poet or the author or the guru goes back to reinforcing his teachings that the Atma bodham itself is Brahmajnana. That the one who practices Atma bodham as per these teachings will attain Brahmajnana. Self-knowledge and Brahmajnana are not two different things. And what is the nature of that oneness is what is indicated in those four verses, and that is how the work is summarized. So what are the main parts? The introduction consisting 1 to 5 verses. Then we have the segment on the world. Why, if in introduction the jnana is assured, we seem to be trapped in this kind of oppressive environment where it never happens that what we want or what we ask for, we can see. What we ask for is completely different from what we are seeing. And how can this be called the freedom of jnana? If we ask, there is the explanation from the Guru in verses 6 to 15 as to how the world comes to appear to be real. And from 16 to 29, we have the verses, because the verses 6 to 15 would have ended with for those with jiva bhava, that I am this individual entrapped in the body very strong. The Guru will say it is your panchakoshas, the upadhis, which give you the feeling that you are trapped in this solid world. That is how it would have ended. And the sadhana from 16 to 29 would be to give us viveka about the panchakoshas and the Atma Swarupa. How the panchakoshas and Atma Swarupa are laid out and how they are not the same. The panchakoshas are the anatma and the Atma Swarupa is something beyond the panchakoshas, and the sadhana will be delineated as to how to get rid of the attachment to the panchakoshas, the upadhis, and how to hold the Atma Swarupa in the form of the Mahavakyas or in form of the statements made in this work itself. So the verses 30 to 40, the next segment will be on the Nididhyasana. The Viveka having been given, you should have meditated on it, and now the practice is done, and that segment of the verses 30 to 40 will end with how to sit in meditation and how meditation is to be constant. Then 41 through 46 will be how this meditation, the spark of jnana created in this meditation, will wipe off all the ajnana. And because the ajnana is wiped off, we will have the reference to the dawn, where when the darkness is driven away, the sun rises and shines automatically, self-luminously. That will be verses 41 to 46. The next segment is on how the individual, the jnani, who has practiced this jnana marga, loses individuality or crosses the individuality and merges in the Brahman. that is verses 47 to 53. 54 to 64, the Brahma Swarupa is delineated, and those verses are so soothing that the silence is automatic. The ego becomes silent even as a sadhana. To listen to those verses is so quietening of the ego, and just listening to them becomes sadhana, but then they are indicative of the nature of Brahman. And when you start abiding, albeit with a little bit of effort which has to be vanquished in sadhana, which has to be vanquished by the luminosity of the self, the nididhyasana, the anubhava verses of the nature of Brahman help you abide in the self. And the last segment, 65, 66, 67, 68, they connect. Suddenly, the Brahma Swarupa was superimposed on us. All along, we have been asked to inquire into what is this self and inquire into the nature of the self. Suddenly, he said the Jnani will vanish into the Brahma Swarupa. And that, what is the connection between the Atma bodham and Brahma Jnana? The author, Guru, will finally finish off by saying that both are one and the same. So practice Atma bodham, that will lead you to Brahma Jnana. So let us look at these verses briefly, having covered the overall layout of the work. Let us look at these verses. Some of these points or some of these catchy pointers may act as reminders for us to do Atmavachara, like Meghapaye Amshavaniva or Vahniva Jnanam. That is how Agni is to cooking. Pakasya Vahniva Jnanam. These are verses, these are phrases which may remind you of self-enquiry. And let us see the verses very, very briefly. Probably in this session, we may be able to take up to 15 verses. Then in the next segment, one more session, we will try and cover up the rest of the verses. A brief look. Then if you have some questions, probably in the second session, we can have some time for questions on the whole of the work. We go to the work and the brief look at the verses. The first verse is, of course, about the nature of or the guna required of the student. That already a tapasvin mumukshunam apekshoyam. The mumukshutva or the seeking of liberation and the purity of mind, having burnt their sins. To such ones, this work is talked of, and in our discussions, we had seen that Bhagavan's Atma-vicharam takes care of that requirement. Now, if we have a doubt, I was taking the liberty of sharing Dilipji's experience with mine, that we get doubt some certain time whether we are eligible when such qualifications are put about the Shat Sampatti or these things. Bhagavan's Atma-vicharam, what it does, it removes those doubts. If you feel you are not eligible, all we have to do diligently, very carefully, is to put aside that thought. For whom is this thought? That I am not eligible for self-enquiry. Mumukshunam apekshoyam atma bodho vidiyate. So it is meant for those who have already got some purity, or let us take the liberty of saying, along with those who already have lots of purity, those who are practicing self-enquiry can definitely take this work up for meditation and anubhava. The second verse, Arivondre ner mukti sadhanamahum. Virasadhanangalin peram arivindri ahadu mukti ural agni indri paham agadavar. This is what I said. We had seen the experience of Bhagwan going with the rest of, I think it was from Skandhashram, that or Virpakshakya maybe, they have gone up the hill to the Yer Sunai for a picnic. They have taken all the items for cooking, all the materials. They have forgotten the matchbox. And it was reported to Bhagwan, and Bhagwan remains the team of this, that how without that matchbox we are unable to start the whole process of cooking. Similarly, without awareness, without consciousness, one cannot expect to get mukti. That is the second verse. Arivondre ner mukti sadhanamaham. The third verse about karma being not the right approach, that since karma aviroditaya karma, that is ajnanam aviroditaya, the karma itself arises based on the false identity with the jivatva. Therefore, you keep on doing more and more karma with the root ignorance not being attended to at all. That cannot be a solution. So, our over anxiety with karma is put a break on by the Guru, that what will happen, will prarabdha continue, will this continue? He says, just put a hold on that, you attend to what I am saying, that put attention on the awareness, then that whole area of prarabdha, agami, sanchita can be crossed. Because when the whole world is being transcended, when the whole world vision is being transcended or observed in the other, have done rightly, wrongly, completed or not, all these are put in a pile of wood and set fire to. So, here the importance of jnanam over the karma margam is mentioned in the third verse. In the fourth and fifth verse, the two ways in which the jnana dawns. We had seen that meghapaye amushavaniva was the fourth verse. Ariyamayal marai anadupol anma arivame arave akt ekamagi nirevai ilagume iriyave meham ilagum adittananave. How when the clouds get dispersed, how that sun is revealed like that the Guru Upadesha in Atma bodham can remove your ajnana and the Atma can shine forth. We had seen the example of how in a cave for thousands of years it has been in darkness. Take a lamp inside, in that kshana, that 1,000 years of darkness, how it gets erased. Like that, it can, the Atma bodha can dawn. However, if our Jiva bodha is strong, if our I am definitely this person, no doubt, and Ariyamayal Kalakkam Arumuir Tuidam. Arivu Pairchi Nala, for such a one, Arivu Pairchi is required. I have done Atma Uchara as a Pairchi. Before that, observing thoughts as a Pairchi. Before that, dhyana for 3-4 years. And I don't know how many lifetimes of various other sadhana. But all that comes and culminates into jnana sadhana, and that jnana sadhana, it appears like effort, it appears like mental effort. Like Bhagavan says in the thought, who am I? The thought, who am I, will destroy all other thoughts, and in the end will itself get burned in the jnana agni. Similarly, the jnana sadhana of nididhyasana from this work. Let us take the Mahavakya Nididhyasana. Let's say that is in one of the verses we will get, verse 38 or so, that sitting in one place, let go of upadhis and meditate on Mahavakya. Let us say that is the Nididhyasana given in this work. What that will do? That is a sadhana. That seems to be a mental work. But like Katakarenuvat, like in the removing the impurity of water, how we put alum, and that alum, it joins the dirt particles and settles down, and the pure water can be taken away, and the dirt and the jnana sadhana will be removed. Similarly, the Katakarenuvat is used in the purification of liquids. It's a powder of the Kataka nut. And what it does is it attaches itself to the sediments of impurities hanging all over that liquid. And attaching itself, becoming heavy, it all settles down. And those jnana sadhana and the impurity, the ajnana, are both removed. But it involves gradual sadhana, is the verse number 5. So this is how the introductory part is laid out. Who is the sadhaka? What are his qualities? Second, how important is jnana sadhana and how important jnana is over karma. Then the two verses of immediate mukti like Meghapaye and the sadhana based mukti where the jnana sadhana also gets removed along with ajnana. That is the introductory five verses summary. Verses 6 to 15, I said I had promised that I will say something about this segment, how the Guru first tells something which is understood by one who is already mature in Jnana Marga, then goes on to identify with somebody who is really caught up. There is something like that seen in this series of verses. What do I mean by that? In the beginning of the indication of the world existence, itself viruppu veruppadi vikara samsarathu iruppu kanavu kinayam. If somebody can take the world existence as akin to dream, whatever may be happening, something very much not liked by us is happening, and we seem to be anxious to do something about it. But then this verse says that this whole world is actually made of only viruppu veruppu. We can go back to the meditations of the Buddhists, where they try to look at the senses and the sensory world without viruppu veruppu, without judgment. What happens is that when the viruppu veruppu is removed out of consciousness, the whole world drops away. The whole of senses drop away. That whole area of senses and sensory world karma drop away. How is this? How can just removing the consciousness of viruppu veruppu, how can it drop that solid world and the solid revelations of the senses, the feelings? How does it do that? There is some indication in mathematics of dimensions. We had seen from Carl Sagan that the 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions, how he discusses. Some facts we had brought out from that was that the lower dimension is permeated and transcended by the higher dimension. In the 2-dimensional world is permeated and transcended by the higher dimension, 3-dimensional world. So a 2-dimensional being, when approached by a 3-dimensional being through words, will feel as though those words are coming from within, is what the scientist says. So the higher dimension, it permeates and transcends the lower dimension. T.M.B. Mahadevan sir also says, the koshas, the Annamaya kosha is permeated, though not fully, permeated by the Pranamaya kosha, permeated and transcended by the Pranamaya kosha. The Manomaya kosha permeates and transcends Pranamaya kosha. The Vijnanamaya kosha permeates and transcends Manomaya kosha and necessarily the other dimensions. When we have a feel of this, we understand that when we read, world actually drops off. There is nothing to be settled in the sensory world anymore. You can take any particular thing which we are discussing in a meeting or what to do. If you remove the like and dislike from that, from what we are discussing, that whole area does drop off. So if one can understand like that, that this is nothing but a kana made of like and dislike, such a one can free oneself of the world aberration in no time at all. And Bhagavan would recommend in teaching Atma Vicharam, treat the world like a dream. So he begins with as light a consciousness in the sadhaka as this, that such a one is already ready to understand that if the higher dimension duality of like and dislike is dropped, one is freed of anything to be done in the sensory world. Anything to be done in the lower dimensions is completed when one becomes rid of the duality in the intellect. The buddhi is free of the dualities. Then when that kosha is completely clear, the lower koshas of breath, emotions and senses and the sensory world, they are as good as, not as good as, they are not existing because they are subsumed in the quiet and inward turned intellect. But that is how the set of verses here are so laid out that if you can understand that, you don't need the Upadhi dropping. But then the Acharya comes down and understands that we have strong Upadhi feeling. But then see how he moves. Evalavu kalam evaikum adhishtanamam avyayamam brahmamai பிரம்மம் ஆய்ந்து அறிதல் ஒவிடாது அத்துணை காலம் அகிலமும் மெய்யாய் தோன்றும் சுத்தி வெள்ளி போல. See how he drops one gradation. What he says is that you are not able to treat it like a dream made of like and dislike. Okay, the ajnanam persists, or the dream of the world persists. That means he has introduced kalam, that it is a dream and I have to cross it in a second is not taken. I introduced the காலம். எவ்வளவு காலம் அஜ்ஞானம் நிலைத்திருக்குமோ அவ்வளவு காலம் உலகமும் நிலைத்திருக்கும். சுத்தி வெள்ளி போல. The example is also something that has been very solidly loaded onto the shell. The appearance of silver, it is solidly there. Unless you closely go and examine, you will not be able to free yourself of that illusion. See how beautifully the great mind has laid it out for us, that if you are ready to see it as a mere play of like and dislike, just like that, for whom? இது யாருக்கு? விருப்பு வெறுப்பு யாருக்கு? Gone. The world illusion is hammered out of existence. If we can't do that, if we bring in time element and we feel our ajnana is எப்பதான் இது முடியுமோ, when is it going to end? Then till then, like Suttivelli, it will continue, he says. See the next verse, how beautifully the gradation goes. This is something we can see in summary, because we are not saying individual verse, we are seeing that flow. முதல் காரணமாய் முழுதின் ஆதாரமா அதுவாம் பரேசன் அகத்தே உதி குமிழ் போல் உலகங்கள் எல்லாம் உதித்து இருந்து ஓயும். Okay, you are not able to directly have that consciousness which treats it as a dream. Okay, you are not able to see that just the time element you bring in, only so far you need to worry about world existence. If you can vanquish the time element, that moment itself you are examining closely that shell, there is no more shining there. Okay, no, those two you are not able to understand. You are so clear that you are Jiva and there is an Ishvara, but you are more understanding of what is Ishvara's nature. Then you understand, as a Vichari, you understand that Ishvara's Aham is Hiranyagarbha. Ishvara's Aham is that I within which all the worlds exist. Within that one single I, that Hiranyagarbha, the Sukshma Swarupa, all the worlds exist, or born, exist, and they go into Laya. That is what is said here. Okay, you can't directly understand, take the identity with the consciousness and understand it's only a play of like and dislike, or only so far as has introduced time element and say that innu evlo naal, to that extent the world will continue. No, you are not able to understand that. You solidly feel you are a Jiva and there is an Ishvara, but you have investigated and matured to understand that the Ishvara's I thought is the Hiranyagarbha mentioned in Mandukya Upanishad. That when in the dream state where the Jiva is called as Taijasa, the whole is called as the Purna, the Ishwaratva is called there as Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha means the I thought, the subtle I thought. Within that, in subtle form, all the worlds are there. முதல் காரணமாய் முழுதின் ஆதாரமாம் அதுவாம் பரேசன் அகத்தே உதி குமிழ்கள் போல் உலகங்கள் எல்லாம். So if you reach that I of the Ishvara, then you can cross the world illusion. He says all the worlds are not outside. You go to the Meyaham of Ishvara, you will find that all the worlds are existing within that. And in fact, as chapter 9 of Bhagavad Gita says, you come through these four statements that Krishna tells to Arjuna, that he says, I am within you, so seek me within you. All the worlds are within me. That is the Hiranyagarbha state. All the worlds are within me. First he says, I am within you, so seek me within you. Then he says, within that, I who am within you, within me are all the worlds. And then the third statement he says, there is nothing in me. Then fourth statement he says, I am not within anybody. If you meditate on these four statements, then you come to the end of Vedanta, says Paramacharya. In one of the discussions with one of his students, says these four statements, that I am within you, try to seek me as the Atma Swarupa, that within me, within you is all the creation. Two statements, apparently contradictory, but you have to work out in jnana. Third statement is even more. Says that there is nothing inside me. All the worlds are inside me. He removes that. There is nothing inside me, and I am not within anything. These four statements, apparently contradictory, are resolved in jnana, and that is where, in the previous verse, the world was said to be in the Hiranyagarbha, within the I thought of Ishvara. Suppose we don't understand that. Satchitanandam Sakalattum Ullula, Ichamam Vishnu, Nilaitanil, Sochamam Punnil Kadakadi Polum, Paltotramala, Anniyam Andrendrari. That means, suppose you are not able to understand that within the I thought of Ishvara, the Hiranyagarbha, the whole creation is there. Okay. Treat the Ishvara as Gita Acharya says, I am within you. The Ishvara's I permeates everything. The Ishvara's I is the Mayaham permeating living beings and non-living beings. That is the Pun. That is the gold. All the Nama and Rupa are Kataka, the ornaments. They are the ornaments. What they are in reality? They are in reality only the Mayaham of Ishvara. So if you can't understand that all the worlds are present within the I thought of Ishvara, understand that the I thought of Ishvara is the Vishnu, is the one permeating all living and non-living beings, and that is the gold from which all creation is made. So if you see the gold, you don't need to worry about the Nama and Rupa. So that is another way of crossing the world illusion that the Guru is giving, but still he assumes that the sadhaka has some knowledge about Ishvara. And in the next 3-4 verses, he will remove our requirement of that knowledge also. That even somebody who doesn't have or has not meditated enough on Ishvaratva to understand that within Ishvara's I, all the worlds are there, or the Ishvara's I is permeating everything, therefore holding it is like seeing the gold, and therefore seeing everything as gold, all the ornaments as gold. Suppose we are not able to have that kind of maturity in our inquiry, it doesn't matter. He is going to bring down the sadhana for somebody who has this normal experience. Arey, I am Jiva, that much I know. Whether Ishvara is there or not, I don't know. I can't just like that go with what the scriptures say and just assume that Ishvara is having an Atma, having an I within which all worlds are there, or that his I is permeating all the worlds. I don't have experience of that. Doesn't matter. He's going to take us in the next 3-4 verses beyond that. But let's take our time in the summary and see the beauty of the flow of the verses. But right now, we can sit in practice of Atma Ucharam for the next 10 minutes before we listen to Akshara. Ujjwalji, we can sit for Atma Ucharam for 10 minutes.
Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of that self, we have been meditating earlier on the verses of Anma bodham, and now we are able to get a peak view. We can say that we are now standing on the peak of Anma bodham and looking down at the path as we climbed up slowly, maybe, and what were things that we experienced on the path. Or in a different way, we can say that Nandakumar is taking us back on the journey of the river from its source in the Himalaya to the sea, where it has merged. The last verses are merger of the self and describing the unity of the self and the sadhana. All this is the last verses, like the river merging in the sea. And so today, having given us a bird's eye view, having given us the beautiful, the whole, the entire pattern of the Atma bodham, there is the introduction. And in the introduction, we have been told that Atma bodham comes to us in a jiffy. It is so simple, it is so direct. And this reminds me of in our various discussions with Nandakumar ji, especially when we talk about the workshops, the self-inquiry workshop, the question will come: should we begin from the karma marga and then go to the jnana marga? Begin from what is easy and then go to the jnana marga? And Nandakumar ji would always tell us that let's begin with the highest truth, so that anybody who is ready for it can pick it up right there. There will be no delay for such a person. So, the methodology which he has described for us today, Nandakumar ji, it is not from the lower to the higher, but from the higher to the lower. So, if somebody is ready to say that in a jiffy, if somebody is ready to give up this identification and understand that jnana is ever revealed, accept jnana is ever revealed, then for that person it happens in a jiffy. But otherwise, if we are not ready to accept that it is actually happening in a jiffy, what Bhagavan says is that the jnana is always instantaneous. But the readiness for that jnana may be the practice which leads us to that. The moment of abidance in the truth, abidance in the self, is always instantaneous. Sometimes we can see when we have a dear one, we might not have met them for many years. And nowadays, of course, there are means of keeping in touch with them. There is WhatsApp, video calls, and Google Meets, and all that. See, whenever the time of COVID, all of us could not meet physically. But even though you are not, even if you're not so frequently in touch with somebody who is very dear, say you haven't spoken to them for 1 month or 2 months, and then you start the conversation with them, the more you start the conversation with them, there is no gap at all. There will be no gap. There will be no ice to break. There will be no feeling, oh, is this person new to me in some way? Or supposing you have traveled outside home and you come back home. The moment you come back home, everything is it just comes to you very naturally. Each and every place where you maybe you place the slippers, where you take your water, everything is so natural and comfortable. It happens in a jiffy. Similar is the jnana. When it is said that it happens in like that in a moment, it means that it is so natural to us. It's our own nature. So the moment we really get connected with it, then it will not feel as if, oh, for years I have been away. Long time I have been away. There will be all the yearning, all the pain, all the separation, everything will just melt away in that moment of awareness, whenever it is revealed. Even Bhagavan says in practice of self-inquiry, this revelation happens even along the way. Only thing is, it is not steady, it does not remain. So, the highest is given to us in the introduction, the simplicity is given to us in the introduction. As Bhagavan says, Ayye ati sulabham, Anma bodham, Ayye ati sulabham, that is given to us in the introduction. And then different reasons or different approaches of removal of the ajnana, of perceiving the ajnana, are given to us in the next set of verses. In case we say no, then Bhagavan also in Aksharamanamali says, Payyavun Veedu Kaatinai. And there also, Nandakumar ji, even while dwelling on the verses, he brought home this point, and today, in a very succinct manner, is brought home to us the fact that either we can take it to be a dream, or then we can take it to be a superimposition, or then we can take it to be multiple objects made of the same reality. So it comes down. So why? Because when we say ornaments of gold, we say there are many forms. We give reality to the many forms. We say the essence is one. But then if you say it's a superimposition, there is no reality to the form. When you call it a dream, when you call it an ornament, there is reality to the form. But when you call it a dream, there is no reality to the form at all. There is no existence of this as real at all. So we come to the point of Ajata, where what was born? Nothing was born. Even a dream did not exist. So that point, if you are not able to do that, then you look at it next. But the point is that sometimes we find in our own experience that we are not one person, we are many people. We are different people at different times of the day, or different have different moods, and or different phases in one day or 2 days. We may be different, we may have different experiences, and we find in some moments of the day, in some, we may be even ready to take it like that, like as if it is a dream. At other moments, or in another experience where the attachment is higher for us, we will be more caught up, and then we can use the other tool which is given to us of saying, no, no, this is only a superposition. This is because of the element of time. When time is not there, what is there? All this ara, kalaname, says Bhagavan. At another moment, we may be even more deeply attached. So we can apply these. We may not be able to apply one of these supports at all times, but depending on that moment of readiness. And if we look the reverse process, say, supposing we have been ready to only say all this is only permeated by Bhagavan, everyone is Arunachala Swarupa, everyone, anybody who is saying good is also the same, everyone who is saying bad is also the same. Then, after that, we can go back to the previous one. Oh, why this division of, say, somebody who is saying there is no good and bad? Is that entity real? Is that entity who is saying there is no good and bad, everything is the same? Is that entity real? When we remove even the demarcation which the intellect is making, and one very beautiful revelation which came today was it's the intellect is the highest kosha, and that intellect, what does it? Does the intellect do? The intellect divides good and bad, right and wrong, good and bad, right and wrong. That's what it's constantly doing. So if it is able to erase that, it will get back to its source. It will get back to the aham spurana. Then the aham spurana, as Nandakumar ji has always told us, the aham spurana, let it remain. Don't ask anything of itself, of it. Don't think, oh, this is aham spurana is real. Let me ask something of it. Let it be. Even that is only a dream. Even that is not required. Even that movement is not required when one lets that go. So one can always move back. If one has moved forward, down, 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 one can also move upwards back to the source. That is what is the beauty of sadhana. And through all this, or underlying all this is self-enquiry. The summary is self-enquiry. The Anma bodham is self-enquiry. When one does self-enquiry, then then in that moment, Bhagavan says, one experiences the self. It is like megapare, like the clouds moving away. In that moment, it may again come back. So, self-inquiry is the essence of each of these verses. Self-inquiry reveals to us that all the thoughts are like a dream. Self-inquiry, if we are not ready to accept it, self-inquiry also reveals to us that all the thoughts are only they are all forms of the same I thought. If you look at it as ornaments of God, or if you look at superimpositions, images which are just rising and going, there is really no silver over there. There is no form to this thought. There is just an appearance. There's really no form. There's no physical form to the thought. And if there's no physical form to the thought, what is the physical form to this I thought? Where is this division? So self-inquiry takes us to the essence of every sadhana. And all these sadhanas, these supports, help us to see the beauty of self-inquiry. When we say, oh, this is like a dream, isn't it? And then once one has come to that point, then who is the one who is saying this? Who is the one who is saying this? We can go to that at every stage in self-inquiry, in any point, no matter where we are in the sadhana, we can take the support of for whom is this? Who is caught up in this? Who is caught up in this emotion? Who is caught up? Who is unable to cross? Who am I? So one can keep going to the ultimate point wherever one is in the sadhana. That is the extraordinary grace of Bhagavan, which has given us the self-inquiry and which is revealing to us the various approaches to self-inquiry and self-abidance. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana to all.
Namo Ramana.